Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to Codecrafting and watching the first video of my second series. As you know, I posted a video in January that kind of discussed what the point of this new channel was in 2019, why I'm really excited about it, and some things that I'd like to cover. And when I say some things, I think it was over 70 languages, frameworks, and tooling. And so with that in mind, I started a series, and the series right now is currently teaching my 5-year-old how to code. And that's going great, and it's been a lot of fun. It is challenging, but I'm enjoying that. And then I realized that one video a week is not going to get me through everything. So I've decided that I'm going to have a second ongoing series in which I'll do one video hopefully a week. I would like to actually stream it normally and then record it and compile it down, or record everything during that stream and then edit it into a concise video. But what I want to do is I want to live stream and record content. And what I was trying to think of, how should I structure this, because there were so many items on that list that you could jump front end, back end, DevOps. You could just jump all around. We could get into native development with mobile. I mean, there's just so many different areas that I decided I actually want this to be even more beneficial for new developers or people who want to become developers. And so that is why I am actually going to be following a repository that was developed by a developer in Dubai named Kamran Ahmed. And this is the repository he created on GitHub. And if you don't know what GitHub is, we'll get to that. But basically, it's a roadmap for becoming a web developer in 2019. Now, the thing is, of course, there's mobile and desktop, and those are things that I've had exposure to and I will cover in this series. And this series is not going to be just one playlist on YouTube. It may be many different playlists broken up based on genre, like in a sense genre. So for example, front end might be a series on its own, at least for playlist, or not a series, but a playlist on its own as a part of this series. And then backend and DevOps. And then that's how I could also do mobile or desktop. So that being said, this developer roadmap is great because it starts off with generally what's required for any path that you take, whether you become a front-end web developer or a back-end web developer or full stack web developer, which may also encompass DevOps. But it kind of shows like a little bit of a path and gives the different basics and more advanced and tooling that you might need to know. Now, there are some items on here that are also alternative that I would like to address during teaching all of this stuff, as well as going through it with myself in the videos. But those things I'm going to mention, maybe address. If it's not something that is really practical, I might just address it in a short video that's like 2 minutes, or I might do something really long, depending on whether I'm messing around with it. But you can see the front end itself is pretty in depth, and a lot of this is where my breadth of knowledge and skill has gone into actual code that is in production. The interesting path is going to be backend, because I haven't done much beyond some simple programs in Golang, Elixir, as well as Python, a couple of Python scripts, and a little bit of Ruby, some PHP, but I have not touched Rust at all. I haven't touched .NET enough. Java, which you would think I would definitely get into, not having a CS degree, since that's what they teach primarily in CS degrees. I haven't had enough exposure to, other than receiving data from services built in Java. Haskell, of course, sounds really cool and functional, along with Rust sounds very cool and interesting. There's a lot to learn. And so this is going to be probably the heftiest learning process for me, as I embark on just at least learning as much as I can about backend, beyond just what I know from the front end. And I do have exposure to Node, so that will be a little bit easier for me. But it is going to be interesting to set up, OAuth and authentication and JWT, etc., with languages that are not JavaScript and using Node. So that being said, DevOps will be kind of the last major section to cover off of this roadmap. And this is going to be a lot of fun, in my opinion. I'm actually really looking forward to getting to this, but it is very technical, and I'm not entirely sure if I'll be able to get to everything that has to do with DevOps this year. So that's a lot of stuff to cover, but what I also would like to cover is I would like to cover teaching development from the very beginning. And so I'm going to start off with some very basic videos. First, just talking about software in general, like programming in general, and then kind of my opinion on different editors and how to download an editor and use an editor, and then the command line and how to use the command line. And I'd like to talk about operating systems and alternative distributions with Linux, as well as, you know, what it's like, maybe the differences of coding on Microsoft as an OS versus on Mac OS. And so I'd like to just kind of start with these basic things that will be shorter videos in this series. That is kind of like just getting people started. Then I can get into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Once I've gotten into JavaScript, which I have a lot of content specifically that I'd like to do with teaching JavaScript and going through JavaScript, I will start to get into like the build tools, and then I'll start working my way into front-end frameworks. Now, as far as the front-end frameworks, there are going to be frameworks that are not on this developer roadmap. There is actually a lot of things that are not on this developer roadmap. And so I'm kind of using it as a premise, but I really think that I have far more ideas as how much further I can take it. For example, on the premise, it only shows React and I think Ember. But in reality, those are not the only front-end frameworks. So I'd like to start off with maybe, you know, jQuery after learning real true JavaScript, and then go into maybe React first, and then after using React, then starting to learn some older frameworks and newer frameworks. So Backbone, Ember, Vue, Angular. I want to do potentially 1.x, and then also the newest version, which is 7. Who knows what it'll be at that time though. And then Vue, which would be cool if it could be version 3. So that being said, it's going to be kind of a breadth of front end stuff that's further out there, and just getting deep into all of that. I have exposure, a little bit exposure with Vue, some exposure to old Angular, and then a lot of exposure to React and that ecosystem. So I think the React videos I will start with just so I can have some traction there. And then I'll, after doing that, I'll dive into, you know, potentially more like pre-compilers and just really advanced stuff that is more practical when working with front end than just CSS properties, right? Because CSS will already have been covered. So it's a lot of stuff to do. I don't even know how many videos I could put out if I put out one a week, but that is the plan. So hopefully you'll enjoy this second series that'll be ongoing, and I will see you in the next video.